And you see how we do our podcast. Very demure.
Very respectful.
Very mindful. Not like you other girls.
We're not showing up here with winged eyeliner and false lashes. And welcome back, Corkies, to another episode of Crips and Corks. I'm your host, DJ, here with my co-host,
Paul, as usual.
What's going on, Paul?
Girl, it's been rough, honey.
Oh, yeah?
We should have done Reba as the hot girl of the month for this month.
Because you're a you're a circle?
Yes.
You're a single mom who works too hard?
Yes, who loves her kids and never stops.
You
Girl,
don't like kids.
What?
You don't like kids.
I do not like kids. That is very true. But girl, we're running everywhere this month. I mean, we have a few projects coming up that you guys aren't aware of yet that will be coming out very, very soon. And it's really keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, as soon as we publish one, we start immediately doing the other.
Right.
That's just how it goes here around Crips and Corks. We're go-getters. We're ambitious. We're not like some of you other girls.
Right. We're always on the move, always on the go, looking for the next thing to do, looking for the next man, the next ghost, the next demon, the next story.
I don't know about demons. I don't fuck with those.
Girl, I love me a good
Although,
demon.
if I met Satan, I'd let him get in a caress.
Just a little one. Sometimes you gotta hit him with the shoulder.
I'd get him let him have a little smooch. I'd let him penetrate. And I'd let him go. And just as he was about to come, I'd clench.
Oh my.
Have you ever seen that skit?
Yes.
Jordan Peele?
Yeah, I love that show. They're really funny, very talented. I was about to say.
You were like, oh, you're into some kinky shit there.
Right. But I do want to talk about some pop culture things really quick. Okay. Well, just one thing I want to talk about.
Paul's Pop Culture Corner.
Paul's Pop Culture Corner, new segment. I mean,
Apparently.
It's always been kind of a thing. I just talk about pop culture.
It just has a name now.
Yes. So I wanted to talk about Miley Cyrus becoming a Disney legend and like how that's
Wait, officially?
She did her speech, she accepted it, and she is officially a Disney legend.
Amazing.
And that just like warms my heart.
It's about time.
Yeah, because she is a legend and we grew up with her. She's like the doll and the diva.
Wait, is that why she gave that interview where they said, would you ever bring Hannah Montana back? And she was like, yes, but Hannah and I would have to have some talk about some of those outfits because she's very stuck in 2008.
Yes, very that. It's been all over TikTok, just like Miley winning this and how it's like all of our childhoods coming full circle. And it's just like, I don't know, it was really, her speech was really good and it was really inspiring. She was talking about how when she was first coming up and like people saw her as just like this little girl, and she said like in her heart she was always Hannah Montana. She was always that star even before people saw her as that. And that really resonated with me. It really penetrated me. And
that's unusual for you. Normally you do the penetration.
I know. We're showing versatility in September. I know it's still August, so
yeah, it still is August. 2 weeks. I had to check to make sure that I had the right hot guy of the month.
Yes. How was your week? Did you have something to say before we transition?
No, I was actually going to ask you, how was your week, or was the whole...
That was my week.
Oh, that was your week. Okay. I have a very interesting story to share on the pod.
Okay, period.
So last Sunday, I was talking to my brother on the phone. He called me. He wanted to know if I had Peacock.
The streaming
service. Not a Peacock. Peacock, the streaming service. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't. I never used it, so I discontinued it. And he was like, okay, that's fine. And I was like, but while I have you on the phone, and he lives in Texas. Mm-hmm. We live in Pennsylvania. I said to him, how are you doing? How's everything? What's new? And he goes, I shat in a bag.
Your brother shat in a bag?
I said, excuse me? He said, I shat in a bag. I said, why? And he said, research. And I said, what kind of research? And he said, I had a shit in a bag and I had to send it off for research. I said, did your doctor ask you to do this? Like, do you have colon cancer or something? And he goes, no, like I shat in a bag and I sent it off for research. And I went, oh, so you did it for money.
Girl, I don't want to talk shit about your brother on the pod, but...
And then...
Girl!
this little twerp has the audacity. I called him then on Wednesday night.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, do you have a second to talk? And he goes, yeah. And I say, I want to circle back to something. He goes, what? And I said, what did you shit in a bag for? What kind of research? And he goes, oh, that was a joke.
It was a joke. He didn't actually do it.
I said, Connor,
God.
you said that so fucking seriously. Like, he was giggling the whole time, but it was like, I shat in a bag.
Why would you even? Why is that something you would even?
I was like,
think
where did this
of?
come from? And of course, this is
Sorry, I just want to just a little more Paul.
awkward.
Get a little more Paul action in there.
Or you could just move closer to me.
Get a little more Paul action for the camera.
Oh, I see it how it is. But yeah, that's how and of course this is after I started telling people in my family, like, Connor shat in a bag.
Yeah, that when you tell that sort of joke, you have to let the person know like pretty soon after.
Yeah.
So they don't tell people.
Yeah, so Connor, I know you don't listen to this, but on the off chance that you decide to listen to this, see what happens when you play cruel jokes on your brother who has a podcast.
The whole world gets to know.
Other than that, yeah, just working.
Normal week.
Yeah, work's a little crazy. We're
Normal.
doing a lot.
Yeah. A normal week in the life of DJ.
Yeah. I edited last week's episode.
Yeah. How did you feel? Do you feel powerful?
No, I feel very emasculated. I feel victimized. It was 40. The raw recording was 59 minutes. It took me 2 full days to edit that shit.
That's usually how long it takes me, girl. People don't realize how long it takes to edit and make this stuff look good for y'all.
Because there will be like a 3-second and it's like, okay, let's cut it out. Okay, let's make it 2.5. No, that doesn't work. Let's make it 1.5 minutes. No. Let's leave it in. No.
Oh, I don't think about it that much.
Oh, I did. I was like playing around with it. I would like 5 seconds would take up like an hour of my life.
See, going back to the power thing, I feel powerful when I edit.
Yeah, because you cut out half of what I say.
I don't cut out half of what you say.
Well, considering half of what I say is yes you do.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. But if you're watching the YouTube, you do hear all of the ums. You get the unedited.
And the awkward silences. Also, and I can say this now that I've edited and I've really listened to the odd edited episodes. Your is so. You say so much.
I know, or I say right. I have certain words
I didn't
say.
even notice right. It was just like, you'd like go into, like, I'd say something and there'd be a silence and you'd go, so, and then there'd be 5 seconds of dead air, and then you would make your point. And I was like, why does Paul do that? He goes, so, and then he leaves dead air for 5 seconds, and he talks about me.
We all have our transitional words.
And now you can't say anything about my or my silences because I have caught you.
Damn, I've got God on the pod. Oh, rude. Oh my gosh. Oh wait, we have to get to the hot guy of the month.
All right. It is the finale of our good Judy. That delicious little scoop of ice cream, Glen Powell. I don't know.
Girl,
I'm tired.
I could use a delicious scoop of ice cream.
We're getting lunch after this. I don't care what you say.
Okay, girl.
So as we talked about last week, Glen Powell did get his start in acting fairly early. He was a theater nerd. I hope I'm not remembering the facts out of order. And he was convinced to become a full-time actor by none other than famed actor and Hollywood legend, Denzel Washington.
Oh, Denzel.
Yeah.
Get into that.
So he was working with Denzel on his 2007 movie, The Great Debaters. And Washington and his agent, Ed Lamato, thought Powell could be a great actor and persuaded him to move to LA and really pursue acting full-time. And Powell really learned the insides of the Hollywood industry when Lamato got an internship for him with producer Linda Obst, who produced classic movies including How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Sleepless in Seattle, and Flashdance, filmed right here in Pittsburgh. And he worked as a script reader and eventually got a full-time job providing feedback to Obst on the script she would receive.
Oh,
So he's done a little bit of it all.
That's
He's been a
nice.
child actor. He's worked in production. Now he's like a blockbuster actor.
We love the diversity. Diversity is key to a healthy prostate. And you know what? I've always said that.
On top of being a loving dog dad, a jock and theater nerd, and a trained pilot.
He does it all. Jack of all trades.
Absolutely. And I know something else he could jack. But anyways, Glenn, thank you so much for being August Hot Guy of the Month. We love you. We love your movies. And we will always be around to support you.
Yes, thank you, Glenn. It's been great. And I'm so excited for the next Hot Guy of the Month.
Me too, whoever he or she may be, because
We'll see, girl.
Lord knows, Beyonce knows, Taylor Swift knows, I do not.
Yes.
I love the dead stare I gave right in the camera.
And we'll make sure to do TikToks for the next person.
Yeah,
Sorry
this
about
month was
that.
a little crazy, and
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
We'll get back to it next month.
Paul tried a couple, and every time he just got a raging hard on it and had to stop. This isn't OnlyFans.
See, that happens every time, though, so that's nothing different.
Are you ready to drink?
Yeah, let's get into it. What are we drinking?
All right, Paul, Corkies. We've got our first repeat wine.
And that's okay.
I did it on purpose.
We like it so much we had to give it another go around.
We're revisiting Apothic Inferno. Just to remind you, this is a red blend that is aged for 60 days in whiskey barrels, creating bold notes of red and dark fruit with layers of maple and spice.
Period.
We had drank this one during episode 2, Amityville.
Oh, Amityville. That was so long ago. It
I
was
know.
long ago. That
You
was
know, I have to
October.
update our tracker to include what wines we drank.
We will have to do that. But nothing wrong with a repeat, you know? And while you're opening that, I just want to give a quick shout out. When this comes out, it'll be the day after my mom's wedding. My mom's getting married, so congratulations to you both. Welcome to the family, to my new stepdad, and congrats to you both.
And I apologize for whatever embarrassing things Paul may have done at the wedding.
Oh, y'all ain't ready for my wedding speech, girl. Just you, Horace, wait.
All right, we got our ASMR pop. Oh,
That was a
I
good
love
one.
it when it's good. Oh, ASMR pour.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna do a visual pour.
And cheers to
Cheers.
my mom and new stepdad. Congrats on the marriage.
Five.
5 grapes.
I gave it 5 on episode 2. My opinion is unchanged.
Yeah, Apothic Wines always kills it. Their wine is top notch. Best wine around, in my opinion. Well, maybe not best. One of the best wines around, in my opinion. If you ever just need a good classic go-to wine, Apothic always delivers.
Their blend, they have like 3 different red blends that are, I've tried all of them. They're delightful. Their Cab is delightful. Their Pinot is delightful. Their Merlot's delightful. I've never had a bad bottle of wine from Apothic.
I completely agree.
And it's not that expensive. It's mid-shelf, so it's not cheap, but it's not uber expensive.
Like 15, 20 a bottle?
Yeah, which
Super easy. Girl, that's a quick handy.
maybe in your house.
Oh, bitch.
All right, Paul. Let me tell you a story.
Let's get into it.
4 acres of American sovereign territory that could be moved anywhere in the world. A moving symbol of the strength and might of the American Navy. She was the first modern-day aircraft carrier. But what should have been a glittering career exploded into flames when cut corners and shoddy equipment malfunctioned. And even though she managed to survive, she was not alone, with something otherworldly joining her crew and sailing aboard her henceforward. Today we discuss the USS Forestal.
How do you say it? Forrestal?
Forrestal.
Forrestal. That's so spooky.
Mm-hmm.
Another ghost ship. Let's get into it. I love, well, not love, but it is interesting to hear about the ghost ships and like the spookiness of the seas, because we do a lot of episodes about the ocean and pirates and
because
things.
the ocean be haunted, girl.
The ocean is haunted, says Star. People don't think about it, but the ocean is really haunted.
It's kind of wild, but we have done more research and explored more in the realm of space than we have our own oceans.
Yeah, because we can't get down there. It's crazy.
Exactly, because of the pressure. I mean, remember last year that Titanic sub?
Mm-hmm.
Just... And I remember somebody said to me, because I'm big into the Titanic. Shocker, I know.
After the 3 Titanic episodes we did.
We only did 2.
Oh, God, it felt like 3.
There is a third one eventually.
Ooh.
But... Somebody was like, what happens to the bodies? And I said, they become soup. And they said, but where do they go? And I said, they don't go nowhere. They become soup.
They become one with the ocean.
Exactly.
They become water.
All right, we're going to jump right in. There is a bit of history here, but it is pretty gruesome. It's a horror story within itself.
Let's go.
So the USS Forrestal was a United States Navy aircraft carrier. She was the lead ship of the Forrestal class of aircraft carrier and was the American Navy's first super carrier.
Oh my God. I know a few super carriers. They have rewards cards down at the clinic. They're good people. Truly icons.
Her keel was laid down in 1952 at Newport News Naval Shipyard. She was the first American aircraft carrier to have an angled flight deck taken from British design, a steam catapult to help launch planes from her deck, an optical landing system, and she was the first American aircraft carrier designed for the use of jet planes.
Oh, okay.
Because before this, like this is right after World War II, before that, everything was propeller.
It's giving modern.
It's very modern. And before this, aircraft carriers, I mean, like you look at an aircraft carrier now and like the deck's kind of angled with that runway.
I did not know that. That is new information.
Here, I have a
picture.
I do have a picture. For some reason, I was at the end.
Oh, it's fine. Your tablet is so weird.
All right, so you see how there's that angle there? And we'll put this, for those of you watching visually, we'll put this up on the screen. For those of you listening audibly, you can look at the Instagram.
Okay, it is angled. I guess so that's the planes can take off and land and whatnot. Okay, period.
And before that, it was just straight at a flat surface.
Mm-hmm.
But the British tried this design out and they found it worked a lot bigger. And Americans, like the good white colonizers they are, said, I'm going to steal that.
Girl. We stole it from the British, though, you said, right?
Yes.
But the British had it coming.
I'm sure the British, being white colonizers, stole it from somebody else.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt it.
She was launched in 1954 and named after the first U.S. Secretary of Defense, James Forrestal. She was completed the following year and commissioned into service on October 1st. Upon completion, she was 1,067 feet long and 238 feet wide. She weighed 82,402 tons. She was driven by 4 Westinghouse geared steam engines run by 8 boilers and could go at a max speed of 33 knots.
I bet she could hold a lot of seamen.
Not only could she hold a lot of seamen, because she was manned by 552 officers and 4,988 sailors.
Wow, I could take a few notes from her.
That's a lot of seamen.
Yeah, jeez.
But she could also hold up to 85 aircraft.
Ooh, okay. That's a lot of planes, actually, because planes are pretty big.
She was literally a moving airport.
So you said she was like 4 acres?
4 acres of American sovereign territory that could be moved anywhere in the world.
That's actually really big.
It's huge.
That's like bigger than this room. That's crazy.
You're not wrong. It is bigger than this room. She was designed to be a moving symbol of the might of American military power and American foreign policy, and throughout her career made many stops around the world to be open for tours to foreign government officials and citizens.
Okay.
Her first mission was to be posted in the Eastern Atlantic, prepared to set sail into and across the Mediterranean to intervene in the Suez Crisis.
Oh, the Suez Canal.
Yes.
Period. See, I know a few things about history.
We're not going to get into what the crisis was because we're here to talk about horror and ghosts.
Yes.
In 1962, she acted as defense carrier for naval exercises off the Virginia Capes with many foreign and U.S. dignitaries, including Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, aboard her.
He's my favorite president, actually.
You want to elaborate on that?
I would rather not, because I don't know anything about that man, and I was trying to make a joke. I love how you clocked that too.
Yeah.
You said Paul doesn't know who this fucking guy is.
Because we have had 2 President Johnsons in our history, and neither of them were particularly good at their job.
Oh, I didn't even know there were 2. That's crazy about us.
Lyndon Johnson got us into Vietnam. He may have passed civil rights, but he did get us into Vietnam.
Ooh, yikes.
Later that summer, she became the flagship for Commander Carrier Group 4 in the Mediterranean and undertook many deck-to-deck landing operations with the Royal Navy carrier Ark Royal. So basically, American and British pilots would take off of one, and they would go past each other and then land on the other to see, like, in a battle. Because it was like a NATO.
Okay, NATO. Okay.
So it was like, okay, so if we're fighting a war, can British pilots land on American ships for support, and can American pilots land on British ships for support?
Okay, I got you.
In November 1963, she made history when she successfully tested whether an 85,000-pound C-130 Hercules could land on her deck, which it did successfully, marking the successful landing of the largest and heaviest aircraft on an aircraft carrier.
And funny thing, that aircraft is now known as Lindsay Lohan. Crazy.
Yes, and to show you how big this thing was, it makes the ship look small.
Okay, it does make the ship look small.
And that ship is over 1,000 feet long.
That's crazy.
That huge-ass plane landed on that ship without going over.
That's really crazy. That's a talented pilot.
Or without knocking the ship over.
Oh, I imagine that could happen. Yeah, I didn't even think
85,000 pounds?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And you hit that the wrong way and the ship just goes...
That's crazy.
In 1964, now President Johnson sent her to aid in a coup d'etat against Brazilian President João Goulart, which led to a 20-year military dictatorship. Did I mention Johnson wasn't a very good president?
You did, which is really disappointing.
I know, he has such a funny name.
I know. We love a good Johnson on the pod, but we can't love that one.
No. But do you know what president we can love for his funny name?
Who?
Millard Fillmore.
Millard? Like the duck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fillmore.
Millard.
Fillmore.
Period. Like Fillmore up.
Exactly.
With ducks. The mallard.
Mallard. This is now a duck podcast.
What if we slowly just turn into a duck podcast? That would be crazy about us. Is that a noise ducks make?
Yes.
I thought it was just like quack. Quack.
Quack, quack, quack,
Okay,
quack.
I hear the quack now. Okay.
And in 1966, she made a stop in Palomares, Spain, to aid in the cleanup of an American bomber which crashed carrying an atom bomb.
Oh, okay.
So far we have a pretty prestigious career, right?
Things are going well.
Yeah. Well, around 1965, what did President Johnson get us involved in?
World War II, I guess.
It starts with Viet and ends with Nam.
Vietnam.
Yes! which was a totally pointless war that America should never have fought, and we committed some atrocious crimes against humanity.
Yeah, really.
But we're not here to talk about Vietnam, except the fact that the USS Forestal was deployed for her first Pacific deployment in the war in July 1967. She was deployed to Yankee Station in the Bay of Tonkin off the coast of Vietnam to be a staging point for naval bombing raids during the war. On July 28th, the Forrestal received a shipment of ordnance, which is bombs and explosives, for the following day's flights, including 16 1,000-pound Fat Boy bombs.
Ooh, okay.
A
Fat Boy bomb sounds like a good name for a drink.
Kind of. It also sounds like a good name for a burger.
Yeah, like a burger or a good, like...
Wait, okay. When we open our gay bar,
Mm-hmm.
you have the Fat Boy bomb.
Okay, period.
It's a triple-decker burger,
Ooh.
extra large fry,
Okay, period.
and a boozy milkshake.
Get into that. That sounds amazing. That sounds so good. I love a good burger.
TM.
What?
TM.
Oh, trademark.
Yeah,
Okay.
nobody take
Trademark.
that.
Yeah, and if you do, we're finding you, bitch.
We have the timestamps. Now, the thing about these Fat Boy bombs is they were not new. They dated back to the Korean War. And I don't mean their design. I mean they were literally built during the Korean War.
Ooh,
And
that's not
stored
good.
in shoddy huts in Guam.
Okay.
Which Guam is hot and humid.
Mm-hmm.
So, the crew got these, and they were pretty uneasy. Because not only were these outdated bombs were rusty, they were also leaking flammable paraffin oil.
Oh, no.
And all of these ordnance crew members weren't used to them, but they knew a little bit about them, and they knew that they were extremely delicate with a tendency to just blow up if you mishandled it even slightly, or if there was too much heat.
Well, that's not good.
The captain actually refused to take the shipment,
Mm-hmm.
and the munition ship said, okay, we can take them back, but we don't have any newer bombs to give you. And so the captain had to take them because he needed to send bombs over on these planes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a bombing mission is for.
Right, there that.
So he decided to compromise and accept the bombs, but store them on the deck rather than in the hold of the ship.
Okay. Interesting.
The following day, the aft of the flight deck was packed with 21 aircraft parked wing to wing, preparing for takeoff, each one full of fuel and fully loaded with either the Fat Boy bombs or Zuni rockets. And I'm going to show you. That is how packed it was.
There's a lot of planes on there, girl.
21 planes is a lot.
That is a lot of planes, honey.
Now, there is one character who's going to come up quite a bit in the story, and it is a pilot named John. This is John.
Oh my god. I'm gonna get married to that man. He's probably dead by now.
He is dead.
Rest in peace, John. You served your country, and goddamn, you did it well.
So, John was in Skyhawk 416.
Okay.
So, that plane there.
The big one?
No,
The
that
tiny
one.
one.
That
He's
one.
in a tiny
416.
plane. It's okay, John. I forgive you for being in the tiny plane.
Well, it's like a fighter jet.
Oh.
Not like necessarily a bomber, it's like a fighter jet.
Yeah, it's like they say, like, it's not the size, it's the motion of the ocean. The jet can go quicker.
When it comes to planes, it's not the motion of the ocean. That can fuck you up. It's not the size of the jet. It's the speed.
Period. Get into that.
So, John's in his, strapped is in his jet, and he's on the port or the left side of the ship. Meanwhile, on the starboard or the right side of the ship, at 10:51 a.m., a pilot was preparing for takeoff, And the thing about these planes were they were powered up with an external power source, and then they would be switched to, and so it was like jump starting a battery.
Mm-hmm.
So it would get a jump start, and then you would switch to internal power. And when he switched to internal power, the plane experienced a power surge, which caused one of the Zuni rockets to fire 100 feet across the deck, severing the arm of a crew member on the flight deck into the two planes across the deck from him, including John's, severing the fuel lines, but it did not detonate. There was a safety.
That's crazy.
I think that's a bit of a delayed safety measure.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But it did break apart and ignite the highly flammable fuel as it sprayed onto the deck.
Oh, okay, that's not good. This is not good, girls.
Like I said, John's plane was one of the planes that was hit.
Yes.
And he barely managed to scramble out of the cockpit over the nose of the plane, which is not how you're supposed to get out of one of these, and onto the deck. And he was only able to do so with the help of Damage Control Team 8 Chief Gerald Ferrier, who, with his team, immediately responded to the fire. Ferrier sprung into the action so quickly, he neglected to put on his firefighting protective gear and was armed with only a handheld fire extinguisher. This man is a fucking hero.
That sounds crazy.
He saw fire and he said, "I'm ready."
Girl, with this little fire extinguisher. Okay, goody girl.
So, I had an uncle who served in the Navy, and he served on aircraft carriers, and it was brutal work. And fires are pretty common, so this is no big deal.
Okay.
Except attached to John's plane, right above the fire, was one of the extremely thin-skinned, extremely sensitive to heat fat boy bombs, which was leaking highly flammable paraffin oil.
Honey, this is not going to end well, okay?
I have an equation for you. Hot fire plus highly flammable and explosive 1,000-pound bomb equals boom!
Very that. Yes, honey. They're going to blow up. The ship's going to sink.
The bomb and the aircraft exploded 1 minute and 36 seconds into the fire, killing 35 men, including Ferrier, all but 3 of his team, and 2 entire firefighting hose crews.
Jesus, that's crazy.
In addition, as the pilots were preparing for takeoff, many were strapped into their seats and some were not able to get out of their planes before the explosion.
So they just like exploded in the plane.
Or they were trapped in there while it burned.
That sounds awful, and I don't even want to think about that.
John, whose plane exploded, narrowly escaped and was turning to help a crew member who was on fire when the explosion happened and was thrown 10 feet and struck with shrapnel.
I'm sorry, who?
John.
No, what's shrapnel?
Oh, that's like bits of metal.
Okay, bits of metal, okay.
Within 10 seconds of the first explosion, 2 more bombs exploded.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, the ship's probably full of them.
Yeah, remember when the captain said, "We're going to store those on deck"?
They stored those bitches on deck.
44 seconds after the second and third explosion, a 4th one exploded.
Girl.
In less than 5 minutes, 8 of the Fat Boy bombs exploded, along with several rocket warheads.
How did that ship not sink? Did it sink?
I have a video.
There's a video.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can see the fire.
Yes. How did they get this video?
Somebody was recording.
Girl, what were they recording? For what? For who?
It was like a promotional thing for the Navy.
Girl, if I put this on the
Lots
screen...
of fire. Lots of fire. Bigger fire.
That's it?
Yeah, I got it from a documentary, so...
Girl, if I get to put that on the screen and we get copyrighted, I'm blaming you.
It's part of the Navy, and it's like over 50 years old.
Wars want their money, okay?
Now, each explosion created a crater in the flight deck, sending shrapnel and burning jet fuel into the depths of the ship, killing 50 or more night crew in their bunks, as well as many others who were trapped at their stations.
That sounds awful.
Fearing the flames would spread and the ship would sink, the captain ordered the watertight doors shut, trapping many more men where they were.
So everyone's just dying. Wait, is our boy Johnson still alive? Not Johnson, John? What was his name? The cute one?
Just wait. The crew, meanwhile, began to manually push bombs, rockets, and whole airplanes over the side of the ship into the sea to prevent further explosions.
Damn, not them pushing the whole airplane into the sea.
Multi-million-dollar airplanes, and it's like, nah!
Girl, that's crazy.
Untrained sailors grabbed fire hoses and began spraying the deck with thousands of gallons of seawater per second, inadvertently making the fire worse as it washed away the chemical fire extinguishing liquid designed to put out burning jet fuel. Because jet fuel burns so hot, water can't put it out.
Oh,
they have special chemicals, and as they're spraying water, it's washing the foam away.
Oh, that's not good. Oh, no.
And due to the thousands of gallons of water per second being pumped, not only onto the flight deck that is now dripping into these craters, but also that is being sprayed into the ship itself.
Girl, this is all sorts of stunt shows and shenanigans.
The ship began to tip to the port, threatening to capsize and taking all hands with her to the bottom of the bay.
Oh, no.
It was only with the quick action of the engineering crew who managed to shift the fuel from the port side tanks into the starboard tanks, which managed to stabilize the ship.
Okay, period. Get into that.
It took nearly an hour to get the fire on the flight deck under control, and nearly 16 hours to extinguish the interior fires.
Okay. That's a long time.
So, that's the flight deck as they're trying to put out the fires. Do you see the huge ass crater?
No. That's the Okay, that's the crater.
It's so big it just looks like part of the ship.
Okay, that's crazy.
And then that's the Forrestal limping away.
That's
crazy. It is on fire.
Girl, honestly, it kind of looks like they had a bomb-ass rave on that ship. They had all this smoke and they were...
This explosion was so big that a lot of the crew members who were like not on the flight deck thought that they were being hit by the Vietnamese. Like they thought they were in battle.
Oh, that'd be spooky.
Like they ran to battle stations. They were like, forget firefighting stations, like this is battle.
Girl, and I can imagine like being in a situation like that, not knowing what to do, having that quick thinking, like, because what do?
And basically all the firefighters were killed in the first blast.
Right. And at that point, it's like split-second decisions make life or death, right? Mm-hmm. So you're just like doing your best.
Of the 73 aircraft aboard, 21 were destroyed and 40 were damaged. 161 men were injured and 134 men were killed.
Okay.
There were so many dead that there was nowhere to put them except in the huge food storage freezers on the ship as it limped back to the Philippines. They were literally grabbing food out of the freezers to put the bodies in.
That would be so sad because, like, you have to think, too, those are people you work with, you, like, basically lived with. You have connections with these people and you're just putting them in a freezer. That would take a very big emotional toll on someone.
Now, believe it or not, many of the survivors chose to return to fight in the war, and many of them actually choose to return to serve on the Forrestal. Like, they refused to serve on any other ship.
That's so weird.
Now, among those who survived and chose to return to the war was our friend John.
Aw, you go, John. You get it. Dear John.
Later on in the war, John was flying a mission over Hanoi when his plane was hit by a rocket, and... Sorry, and he crashed, and he was taken as a prisoner of war.
Okay. Poor John. Okay, well, he survived a plane crash, which is very impressive.
And endured instances of torture.
Okay.
But he was actually really good. Like, he was tortured so bad that the Vietnamese were going to release him early, and he refused, saying that there were men who were there longer than him, who, like, it was their turn to be released.
That's so wild. It's wild that they had, like, a system. That's very wild to me, that, like, they had a torture system. Like, oh, you have to be tortured this long before you get released.
It wasn't even, like, torture. Like, he was tortured.
Mm-hmm.
And he was beat so badly that they were like, yeah, there are other people who are here longer, but we're going to release you because you're like so. Because the thing with POWs is you don't want them to die on your watch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, we beat you within an inch of your life. We got to get you back before you die. Because if you die on our watch, it's our fault. If you die in America, it's America's fault.
Okay. That makes sense now. Okay, I get it.
But John refused, saying that it was another man's turn and he was not going to take that man's turn. But he was released in 1973.
Oh, that was a good year. I remember it well.
In 1980, he would retire from the Navy. And in 1983, he would enter Congress and later become a United States Senator, known for being a maverick, often breaking with his party on many different issues, and would one day become the Republican nominee for president.
Okay.
That man was John McCain.
I take it back, bitch. I take back everything I once said. Okay, I got catfished. I got I was dunced. Listen, okay, that man, okay. Here's the thing, you can't trick me like that, DJ. You can't be doing all this. You can't be showing me pictures of cute guys and then they end up being John McCain. That's not what we're doing on this podcast. Okay, I denounce that. I take it back. And you know what? He wasn't even that cute to begin with. I do not appreciate being lied to, being catfished.
How did I lie?
You didn't, I guess. But I was withheld a key detail. And you, me, and everyone knows, I don't know what the fuck John McCain looks like. Well, I know what he looks like now. I hate it here. I'm calling the police. This is my formal resignation.
Good news though, the Forrestal would be repaired and returned to service, despite the $57 million damage.
I should have known when you didn't tell me his last name. I should have known.
If he was just some random airplane pilot, would you have cared what his last name was?
No, I for real thought you were going to tell me John actually didn't exist. He was a ghost.
Later.
That would have been a good story.
She returned to service. But she never went back to serve in the war. That was her only wartime experience. Which is kind of a failure. You set yourself on fire. Oh, also, did I mention that she was only in the war zone for 5 days?
Who?
The Forrestal.
Oh.
And she managed to blow herself up.
Honestly, same. That sounds like something I would do.
And it was the worst aircraft carrier disaster since World War II.
Oh my god.
But anyway, she would go on to provide aid in flooding in Tunisia and evacuate U.S. citizens from Cyprus when the island was invaded by Turkey. In June 1972, she experienced another debilitating fire which caused $7 million in damage, destroying all of her computer equipment and nearly capsizing her again.
That's crazy.
In 1976, she was the host ship for the International Naval Review, and President Gerald Ford rang in the bicentennial of American independence on her deck in New York Harbor.
Okay, New York Harbor, get into that.
In 1978, a pilot mistakenly tried to land on her deck when he saw other aircraft were already parked there. He could not pull up, but ejected from his plane and survived. But the plane did strike another plane and caused another fire. But this one was easily extinguished.
Well, that's good.
On April 8th, 1978, a fire broke out in the No. 3 main machinery room, resulting from hot steam pipes up against freshly painted insulation.
Mm-hmm.
3 days later, another fire broke out in one of the steam catapult rooms in a nearby storeroom.
Okay.
In May of that year, one of the pump rooms sprung a leak and fled so heavily it spread to the food storage rooms next door, and the ship lost its store of fresh dairy and produce.
Okay.
Do you see a theme here?
Lots of fires.
In 1988, she made port in New Orleans for Mardi Gras and opened herself up for tours for 40,000 visitors over 4 days.
Get into that.
That's 10,000 visitors a day.
Get into
During
it.
Mardi Gras.
It's 4 acres long, so it's a pretty big area.
True. The following year, she provided support for President George H.W. Bush during his summit in Malta. She was not deployed during the Gulf War and remained stateside in a state of continued readiness, which does take a lot out on a ship. Are you going to make a joke?
No.
You're still trying to reel from me catfishing you?
Yeah. Bitch, you knew I didn't know who John McCain... Well, I know who John McCain is.
I knew you weren't going to know that picture. And that's why I did it how I did it. Because I was like, that doesn't actually look like John McCain.
And you knew I didn't know John McCain's backstory.
I did.
Bitch,
I never said this wasn't going to be a comedy episode.
Girl,
I just said it was going to be horrific. And I find horrific things funny all the time.
Same.
In 1992, she sailed to Philadelphia for a $157 million refit to become the Navy's designated training carrier. So basically, they were going to do this huge overhaul, and she would, like, if you were going to serve on an aircraft carrier, you would have to train on her. But by the next year, the Navy scrapped these plans, decided not to have a designated training carrier, and decommissioned her.
Okay.
Her new propellers were stripped to be put on the USS Harry Truman, which is kind of ironic, and I'll tell you why later.
Okay.
And her anchors were stripped for the USS John C. Stennis. She was put on reserve to become a memorial or museum ship, but insufficient funds or plans were made, and in 2003 she was marked for disposal. The Navy considered sinking her to become an artificial reef, but decided not to due to most modern aircraft carriers being based on her design.
Okay.
In 2013, she was towed to Texas, where she was disassembled and sold for scrap.
Girl, I hope that's what they do to me.
I know what you're thinking. Wow, great, DJ. What the fuck? Who cares? But what if I told you the Forrestal had a reputation for being haunted dating back to the time she was in service?
Interesting. Tell me more.
So, a lot of Navy ships are noted for being haunted, but most of them got their reputation after they were decommissioned.
Mm-hmm.
The Forrestal was still in service, and her sailors were talking about it.
Was this after the explosion?
Yes.
That makes sense. I mean, all those people died, girl. Like, what do you think?
In 1988, the ship's public affairs officer, Lieutenant James Brown, published a photo of a disembodied pair of khaki uniform pants entering a hold.
Okay.
The entity was quickly named George and became an overnight celebrity.
Period. Get into George.
Now, many strange happenings aboard the carrier were attributed to George, including strange noises, disembodied footsteps, appearing and disappearing, knocking over stacks of supplies, turning lights on and off, banging hatches open and shut, and playing with the telephones.
Okay, that's interesting. It's giving poltergeist.
Very much that. Jordan was most known to haunt the holds and specifically the cold storage freezers.
Spooky. Not the cold storage freezer.
What do you remember about the cold storage freezer?
That's where they put the bodies. No wonder there's a fucking ghost.
Now, Petty Officer Gary Weiss recalled twice being in a hold when he saw a khaki uniformed officer walk past him and into this little like storage room, like where like there'd be like some equipment. And he'd like peek his head in there to see who went in there, and it's a dead end and no one is in there, but he watched this officer walk through the door.
That's so spooky.
There's nothing.
See, that's what I want to see. If I ever paranormal investigate, I want to see like an apparition. I want to see that real shit.
So that happened twice to him.
Okay.
On another occasion, he and another crew member were in one of the soundproof freezers.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they're so big, they're not designed to be soundproof. They're just kind of intrinsically soundproof.
Mm-hmm.
And the door was shut when they heard somebody say, "Hello, shipmates."
Was it a man or a woman?
It was a man.
Period. Spooky.
Women weren't allowed to serve in the Navy back in 1967.
They need nurses. I'm sure there were women nurses on the ship, maybe.
They did have women nurses because, like, that was the only way you could serve in the Navy for a long time as a woman.
See?
The Naval Nursing Corps, I think it was called.
Get into that. Get into that.
But I don't know if they had female nurses on aircraft carriers. I think it was mostly men.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened to those bunks. Ooh.
To the what?
In the bunks.
Oh, in the bunk. I mean,
long periods out at sea, not seeing no females. That boussoir just start looking real good.
we remember what those pirates were doing, girl. The pirates were plowing.
I mean, they talk about tossing salad in prison. All I know is the Navy's said to have the best cuisine in the armed forces.
Girl, is that true?
Yeah.
I'd like to give it a try sometime.
I told you I had an uncle in the Navy.
You know what? I think my grandfather was in the Navy. I think he was actually a cook, too. I could be wrong. My mom can fact check me later, but I think that was actually a thing.
I actually went on a deep dive because I called my dad last night to ask about my uncle in the Navy, and I found out he served on aircraft carriers, and I went on a deep dive trying to find his naval records to see if he ever served on the Forestal.
Oh.
I could not find them.
Now, my one grandfather, he did serve in the Air Force, and he was stationed over in France. And he had a very nice car there. Apparently, he had a lot of girlfriends. He was quite the player. And you know how us Miltonberger men do it. We get down, get into it. It runs in my blood.
And then my father told me about a cousin of his who was in the Air Force, but he never flew a plane.
Wait, well, duh, maybe he was like a nurse or something.
No, he was in administration. I said, why would you join the Air Force and not fly a plane?
For the same reason you would join the other branches and not do whatever it is they're doing. You
If
know,
I join the Navy, I'm going on a boat.
Why? It's not going to be fun. You're not going to have a good time on the boat.
That's why I'm not in the military. But if I would, I want to be on a boat.
That doesn't even make sense.
Moving on. Sorry, I lost my place. There were so many instances showing his presence in the freezers that the ship actually instituted a rule that no one was going to go down to them alone. You had a buddy system.
Okay, maybe they were concerned about people stealing food too.
This is the Navy. You steal food, you get court-martialed.
Well, I don't know who Marshall is, but is that like a punishment? Does Marshall like send you home?
A court-martial is like a military court, and if you're court-martialed, you're put on trial, but you don't have a jury necessarily. You have like a jury of other military people. So it's technically a jury of your peers, but not like fellow citizens. It's military people, and if those military people would not steal food, you're screwed.
Okay.
And like you can get like, when you're in the military, getting court-martialed is like terrible. It's not a good thing.
Spooky.
One cook was taking inventory down there when he heard deck grating being lifted and slammed right behind him. But every time he turned around, no one was there. And like this is like a long, straight corridor where you can see, and there's nowhere for somebody to duck behind.
Okay.
Another cook refused to go down to the freezers, point blank. And he said that when he saw George, he swore he had known him. And this cook was so terrified that he had to be transferred to another ship.
That's crazy. Maybe he served like with the George like before he died.
Now, George was also known to open and slam hatches, open and shut, which were securely secured, sealed shut. So on a ship, like these hatches, they're huge. They're like this thick. And then you have these big like bolts to seal them.
Okay.
So once you seal them, there's no opening them. who the fuck is opening them?
Right.
He would also crank call officers who would answer long disconnected intercom telephones only to hear the mumblings of unfamiliar voices.
Okay, that's spooky.
Or sometimes the distant shouts of help.
See, that's even more spooky. Oh gosh, that would be creepy.
Sometimes people would hear a man screaming for help only to find no one there. Perhaps he was reliving his horrifying final moments being burned alive. Perhaps in his plane as it burned alive. Could you imagine the ghostly shouts? Fuck you, McCain. I'd vote for Obama if I could hold a pencil.
Same mood.
Not even a pity laugh.
Not even like...
You're still so pissed I catfished you.
I'm not even mad. It just wasn't very demure.
It wasn't very respectful either, but you know what it was. It was considerate.
I don't know if it was considerate, girl.
It was considerate for myself. Now, George was a true crew member, and he was no slouch. He pulled his own weight with work. Now, to get food supplies from the deck down to the food storage lockers, they would be passed on these human chains.
Mm-hmm.
And when you would get to the bottom, there'd just be like two guys.
Yeah.
And on one occasion, two crew members were in charge of they were the end of the line, and they were in charge of receiving them and putting them in the cold lockers. And they filled one up, and they opened the other one to find it pitch black, and they couldn't find the light switch. And then they figured out that it was completely empty, and one of them would have to run to the back, set the box down, and run back to get the next box.
Okay.
And now these are big. These are like probably the size of your entire building.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a distance to run.
Okay.
So, and meanwhile, boxes are being passed down to them from above every 5 seconds.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of running. I can't run like that, girl.
So the one decided he was going to be the runner, and he grabbed a box, ran to the back, set it down, returned, and his mate said, "Holy fuck, how did you get back so fast?"
Mm-hmm.
And the guy said, "What do you mean? I just got back now." And his mate said, "No, I just handed you a box, and you're back already."
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't argue, boxes were piling up. But after that, they could never get their rhythm. And this happened several times throughout the ship's history, where somebody would just appear in the chain.
That'd be spooky. The ghosts are just appearing in the chain. Well, at least they're pulling their weight. They're not just, taking a free ride. They're pulling their weight,
Another crew member who had night watch duty on the flight deck, was standing and watched a set of chalk blocks get chucked from underneath the wheel of a plane with no one around.
Okay, poltergeist. More poltergeist activity.
That same crew member once saw a figure sitting on the wing of a plane, swinging his legs over the end for a full minute before it slowly faded away.
That'd be spooky. I would love to see something like that. I want to see...
I got that one from Reddit, and he said he nearly pissed his bell bottoms.
Oh, the 70s, the bell bottoms.
I don't know if it was the 70s or because, before the bell bottoms were fashioned, that's what sailors wore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was just part of the uniform.
Okay, interesting.
George was seen all the way up until the time the Forrestal was scrapped. A welder who was hired to dismantle the ship was working in one of the former freezers, having no idea of the stories, when he heard a strange clang repeatedly. So he got his wrench out and he copied it on a pipe, and he got a reply back. And this went on for some time before he decided he was going to go out in the hall and see who it was messing with him. As he exited, he saw the transparent figure of a horrifically burned sailor staring back at him before slowly fading away.
That would be crazy. That's the type of shit you see in movies. That would be scary. Like, it's one thing seeing a regular person, but, like, a deformed, like, burned person, that would... Ew.
Now, Paul, I know what you're thinking. Who was George?
Who was she? What was
No.
she doing? What's her credit score?
Ghost experts and former sailors are pretty divided on who he was. Many believe him to be one of the men killed in the 1967 fire. Others believe he was a pilot who died crashing into the flight deck sometime before the fire.
Okay.
After all, she was about 12 years old when the fire happened. It could have happened.
Right.
Still, others believe it was a pilot who died in a crash in 1986.
Okay.
This doesn't make sense, however, because the sightings date back well before that.
Okay.
And still others believe it could be the spirit of the ship's namesake, Secretary of Defense James Forrestal.
Oh, Joms.
But why would Forrestal haunt this ship? I hope you're ready for DJ's Conspiracy Corner. That's right, we got a mini-sode in this episode.
Oh, okay, girl.
James Vincent Forrestal came from a strict middle-class Irish-American family and grew up to be a successful Wall Street financier before being appointed Undersecretary of the Navy in 1940 by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was tasked with overseeing the buildup of the Navy in the early days of World War II and with mobilizing domestic production for the war effort.
Okay.
In 1944, his superior, Secretary Frank Knox, died, and Forrestal became Secretary of the Navy officially, despite the fact that he'd been running the department since he was hired. Towards the end of the war, he pushed for face-saving measures to allow the Japanese to surrender and accept the US's terms, which President Truman actually adopted.
Okay.
Because America wanted a non-conditional surrender. Japan wanted a conditional surrender, and Forrestal was like, give them some, like, little trinket conditions just to get the war fucking over.
Hey, why not?
In 1947, the Department of War was closed, and the departments of the Army, Navy, and Air Force were rolled into a new Department of Defense, and Forrestal was named as its first secretary. Forrestal was very upset by this, because he did not want a overall Department of Defense and actually fought it.
That's weird.
He was like a big Navy guy.
Okay.
He was very proud of the Navy.
Okay.
As Secretary of Defense, he pushed for full racial integration of the armed forces, took a hard line against the growth of the Soviet Union and communism, and fought against the formation of the State of Israel.
That's interesting.
Because Israel wasn't always Israel.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The UN kind of made up Israel after World War II, after the Holocaust.
Oh, I did not know that. That's wild.
And Forrestal took the stance of, this is not a bad idea because it's going to make many of our the Arabs in that region unhappy, and we're going to lose oil.
Mm-hmm.
In 1948, Forrestal met with Republican presidential candidate Thomas Dewey to arrange to keep his job as defense when Dewey won the election that November.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of President Dewey?
Girl, you know I fucking haven't.
That's because there was no President Dewey. Dewey lost, and Truman,
Oh.
Forrestal's already boss, won re-election.
Now, I do know about some Truman.
So, needless to say, Truman was big pissed at Forrestal.
Okay.
The next spring, Truman fired Forrestal because of his continued fights on military budgets, his opposition to Israel, and his meetings with Dewey. Within weeks of leaving office, Forrestal was admitted himself to Bethesda Naval Hospital for psychiatric treatment and was diagnosed with nervous exhaustion compared with operational fatigue, better known as PTSD, and depression. However, after a few weeks of treatment, he began to improve. He began to regain weight. He began sleeping. He began eating. And he was in high spirits, telling many of his friends that he was on the road to recovery. However, On May 22nd, 1949, Forrestal was found wearing only pajama bottoms with a bathrobe cord wrapped around his neck, lying on the roof of the 3rd floor, having fallen from his 16th floor suite.
He would. Oh, did he die?
Yeah, he died.
He committed suicide?
So that's Forrestal.
Okay.
We'll have a picture. That's where his suite was. That's where he was found.
So he had to jump pretty far to get over that ledge below.
That's 13 floors. He fell 13 floors.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, like he went out a window.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Department of Navy held an inquiry and declared it a suicide as a result of his depression and breakdown, and then sealed his medical records.
And here's the conspiracy.
This has led many to wonder if he actually jumped, or did he fall, or was he pushed to his death? Some have posited that his death was the last piece of his destruction, orchestrated by high-placed politicians who were angered at his outspoken stances advocating for making allies in the oil-rich Middle East.
Okay.
This report was even entered into the congressional record. So basically a bunch of people said, like, the Zionists and the Jews got mad at Forrestal and they had him killed.
I could see that.
Another journalist believed him to have been assassinated by Soviet KGB agents for his strong anti-communist and anti-Soviet stances. Forrestal was so against communism that he actually inspired Senator Joseph McCarthy to do the communist witch hunts in the early 1950s.
Not the communist witch hunts.
The Red Scare.
Oh, I had a few of those.
I know. Others believe that he was the first of many CIA assassinations designed to look like suicides.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the wine's getting to me. Still others believe he had evidence of UFO and alien contact and threatened Truman with going public, at which point Truman had him assassinated. Or that he was so overwhelmed by the evidence of alien encounters that he killed himself.
Ooh, that would be really cool. Not cool, it would be cool if, like, that was real and the UFO information got leaked.
So perhaps it was the ghost of Jim Forrestal wandering the halls and holds of his namesake ship, the first supercarrier of his beloved Navy, and maybe he was trying to have his truth be told.
Justice for my girl.
Sadly, since the scrapping of the USS Forestal in 2014, nothing more has been heard of George.
Well, no shit.
But he still lives on in the memories of those who served aboard the Forrestal and everyone who hears his stories of the encounters with him.
Oh, George.
Now, I will say there are no more stories of him, but have you ever heard of, like, those planes that crashed and then Boeing will, like, use parts of it in, like, to repair other planes, and the ghosts of the crew and passengers of the crash plane will, like, haunt the new planes?
I have not heard that, but that's really
we'll have to
interesting.
cover that. I was, like, thinking, like, we haven't heard stories of that, but, like, I wouldn't doubt it. Like, there's, like, some other haunted ship in the Navy, and it's like, oh, and it's just, like, it's a new ghost, but it's just George.
It's just George. You know George. LOL.
So sorry there's a lot of history. I try to make it as horrifying as possible. And
It was
by
a good episode.
as horrifying, I mean gruesome, not horrifying as boring.
It was a good episode. I learned a lot. I got tricked. I got catfished.
That was my favorite part of the episode.
I have a new good Judy George. We love you, George.
Don't
Come
forget
haunt
your
us
new love.
sometime.
Don't forget your new love.
I don't have a new love.
John McCain. Mrs. Paul McCain.
Oh my gosh. Okay, why does that kind of sound good though? Get into Paul. Wait, no, don't get into Paul McCain. We're not getting into that. I'm going to stop addressing McCain, and I'm not going to get canceled this episode. I firmly believe that we are all one with the world and the universe, and I think we are all. And that's why I should be Miss America. Thank you.
Paul, any closing thoughts for this before I ask you one final question?
Closing thoughts. I would love to see George. I would love.
Right?
I wish that plane was not assembled. Ship. I wish that ship was not assembled so I could go give it a good old visit, go see the good old ghosts on the ship. But unfortunately,
I was shook because I heard about it on a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Like on a shipwreck podcast, they did a Halloween episode and they were talking about ghost ships or ghosts on ships.
Yeah.
And they got most of their information from an article about the Forestal being towed to Jacksonville, Florida to become a museum ship.
Right.
And so when I did my research and I found out it was scrapped, I was like, no, George!
Why? Why have you forsaken us, the Navy? Well, maybe it wasn't the Navy's decision.
So
those whores.
Yeah, the Navy has this process where, like, if it has like a really famous ship, it puts it into it decommissions it and puts it into museum reserve status, and you have 10 years. Anyone has 10 years to raise enough money to buy it. But you have to have enough money to buy it and then to convert it into a museum, because you can't just like leave it as a ship. You got to like work on like hooking it up to land so it has power, and then you take the engines out, and then you got to make sure that it's still like float worthy. So it takes a lot of money. So if you can't raise that money in 10 years, which is what happened to the Forrestal, they just sell it.
Okay.
Or sink it.
And I just want to clarify, when I said F those whores just now, I wasn't referring to the Navy as a whole. I was referring to those whose decision it was to disassemble the beautiful ship of the
Forrestal.
Same thing.
Well, the USS John F. Kennedy is up for sale. Crips and Corks purchase. We can put it on the business card.
I don't need a boat. I'm good. We're going to keep the ocean. We're going to let the ocean do her thing, okay? I don't need a boat.
Well, no, we'll put it in the rivers here. Like, we don't have to go in the ocean.
Girl, how big is that fucking boat? It's probably too big for the rivers. And honestly, do you want to sail on these rivers? If you know anything about Pittsburgh...
We're not going to sail it. We're just going to dock it. Do you know how much gas that probably takes up?
Girl, if you know anything about Pittsburgh, those rivers are dirty, okay? You don't want to be sailing on those rivers, okay? I know people try and make it a trendy thing, get on the tiki boats or whatever, but that river's still brown, girl. But at the same time, I don't mind a good river float. Y'all need to get yourselves down to West Virginia, find yourself a good old river, and float down that river. I've floated down a few good old brown rivers myself, and it's a good time. Y'all need to get into a river float.
She's only 1,052 feet long.
I don't know what that means, but I don't know
the John
size.
F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Just under 4 acres.
Girl, that's like half the river.
We could build our community, Paul.
I lived in a spiritual community once. I'm good. Been there, done that.
All right, Paul, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Smash or pass? Barack Obama.
Smash.
You said that so fast. I love it.
I mean, it's Obama. I mean, have you seen Obama?
Yes, I have.
Get into that. Oh my gosh. And Michelle can watch.
Amen. Amen. And I think that's all she wrote.
And God bless America. What a very patriotic episode. We should have saved this for like Labor Day or something.
Or next 4th of July.
Oh, 4th of July. Yeah, that's more patriotic than Labor Day.
I'll find there are so many haunted Navy ships. I'll find another one for next 4th of July.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll find like a haunted like government building.
We'll think of something.
Maybe like I'll find Capitol ghosts. Ooh. Anyways,
I think... Is that all she wrote, or do we?
That's all she wrote. Like, thank you all for tuning in to listen to this. Please be sure to email us or text us your thoughts. You can, if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else that you listen to this audibly, go into our description or the description below. You'll see a link. Text us. Shoot us your thoughts. You can also email them to us. cripsandcorks@gmail.com. You can also send your story suggestions or your personal stories to the email address. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media on Facebook and Twitter @CripsandCorks, on Instagram and TikTok @CripsandCorksPod. You can also DM us anywhere there, but please, guys, just save your personal stories for the email address so we have them all in one place. Paul, where can they find you when you're at home?
You can find me at my personal Instagram and TikTok at Paulember, Paulember. And as usual, folks, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
And if you would like to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram and on TikTok at The Real Deej Powers. And if you would like to send me a love letter, you can do so by addressing it to the former Bethesda Naval Hospital, now part of the Walter Reed Military Hospital Complex.
Period.
I want to have you send it to the Forestal, but that's just a hunk of scrap metal down in Texas.
What can you do?
And remember, whether on land or sea, keep your crips tight.
And your corks loose.
Bye.
Oh, do you think they still got those $5 footlongs?
I think they went up to 6.